Scientists track the changes of planets' temperatures in many ways. Land-based weather stations and ocean buoys in every corner of the world are used to monitor temperatures constantly. Temperatures from the past have left their traces in tree rings, coral reefs, and ice cores. When scientists look at the evidence, they have a very clear picture of how the Earth's temperature is changing. The sun, the Earth's reflectivity, greenhouse gases.
The founder, John Lyman, and his wife bought 36 acres of land in 1741 and turned it into a farm. Throughout the years and 8 generations, the family had expanded the farm to what is now 1,100 acres of land. The orchard includes many activities like hay rides, a seasonal corn maze, the famous pick your own peaches, apples, pumpkins, and more.
In 1871, Bishop's Orchard was a family farm owned by Walter Goodrich. His son, Burton Walter Bishop, joined him and expanded the business. In 1920 and 1926, land was finally purchased for the first commercial orchard. By the 1960s, crops that were grown at the orchard included apples, peaches, pears, plums, nectarines, strawberries, lettuce, cabbage, beans, and other vegetables. A major addition to the main farm market and cold storage on Route 1 was finished in September of 1978. The farm now covered 2,500 square feet. In 2005, Bishop's Orchard broke ground for the 11th addition and renovation that added a total of 7,000 square feet.
Since instrumental measurements began in the 1880s, the past decade is officially the warmest on record. Previous research suggested that in the 1980s and 90s, warmer temperatures and higher levels of precipitation, factors associated with climate change, were generally good for plant growth. But it is possible we've had too much of a good thing. An updated analysis published this week in the journal Science indicates that as temperatures have continued to rise, the benefits to plant growth are now overwhelmed by longer and more frequent droughts. Scientists from the University of Montana investigated global net primary production of land plants using satellite data from the past 3 decades.
In a way, I need a change from this burnout scene. Another time, another town, another everything. But it's always back to you. Stumble out in the night under pouring rain. Made the block, sad thought, there's more I need.
How long have you been working at the garden, and how'd you come about working there?
Yeah, I've been, the garden started in about June 2007. There was this environmental club on campus called the Environmental Futurists, and I was involved with it a bit then. And then over the years, it's gone from the Environmental Futurists taking care of it, and now it's under sort of the guidance or stewardship of the President's Sustainable Climate Commitment, which is made up of a number of faculty, staff, and administrators here at Southern who are concerned about environmental sustainability and climate change issues, and are trying to address those issues by changes we can make on campus. And it's, which I am a part of. And working with them, I'm the coordinator for the garden.
Oh, cool. Okay, do you think global warming has affected the plant's growth at the SCSU garden?
It's funny. I've only been gardening for a few years, but talking to a lot of gardeners who've been gardening for decades have told me how different their plants have gotten over the years. And they've said, this year was just a lot hotter and the plants were withering a little bit more and needed more water and that sort of thing. And some of them sort of contributed to, some of them said it could be because the ozone is depleting and that the sun is a lot more intense than the plants are used to it. So I haven't, I've seen that in my garden, but I don't really have a point of comparison in terms of what it was like before.
Does the global warming affect the garden positively or negatively, do you think?
Well, part of the idea of the garden is to address global warming in the sense that climate change will affect how agriculture produces in the future, maybe less. And being able to grow your own food locally is like a huge part of that. A huge part of being able to address the idea of, what happens when there are, if there are, food shortages or anything like that, to be able to have the skills to be able to do that. Because climate change will change environments around the world.
What steps do you think SCSU students should take to better the environment?
I guess it depends on what your interests are. It ranges. There's people who are willing to go and join an environmental club on campus. There's people who are interested in recycling. Like the bookstore on campus sells recycled like caps and gowns, for instance, and that's making a difference. Or there's getting involved with the garden, and there's getting involved with community organizations, the farmers markets here in New Haven, which are excellent, the community gardening program here in New Haven, which is excellent. To energy conservation, having a solar panel, riding a bicycle instead of driving a car, using public transportation. So there's so many things, but I think we, instead of being overwhelmed by this sort of environmentalist thing, just sort of figuring out what changes we're willing to make and just taking it step by step.
What changes do you expect from global warming within the next 5 years?
Well, it's interesting how, you even see in the media the people who deny climate change. But beyond that, for those who accept it, it seems that what we're going to see is that weather is going to change a lot more drastically. Places, in the Midwest, for instance, is going to start getting hotter and drier. The whole continent of Africa is going to get a lot hotter and drier. The Northeast and other places are predicted to be a bit wetter, a little less sun. And that affects. I focus on food issues with the garden, but so with that in mind, I think about different types of plants who do better when it's hotter and drier versus wetter and colder. So to me, there's always that in mind. But I think that there are many more, like, how could you use a solar panel if there's no sun, right? Things like that. And then of course the polar bear image we get, like the ice caps melting. That's going to that's definitely going to affect climate. That's going to affect the temperature of the planet, and it's going to affect the environment.